With just 2 weeks until our wedding, Emma stood in our shared apartment holding a stack of financial documents that Tyler Richardson had given her. The papers showed his family's net worth, and her eyes were practically glowing with dollar signs. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She turned to me with that cold, calculating look I'd been seeing more often lately, and said the words that would change everything between us forever. Jake, I can't marry someone who can only give me a mediocre life. Tyler can offer me everything I've ever dreamed of, and you, well, you're just a graphic designer who lives paycheck to paycheck. The engagement ring she'd been wearing for 8 months landed on our coffee table with a sharp clink that echoed through the silence. She didn't even look back as she grabbed her designer purse, a recent gift from Tyler. No doubt, Tand walked out of our apartment for the last time. She didn't know was that the mediocre man she was leaving behind had enough money sitting in trust funds to buy Tyler's entire family business 3 times over, but Emma was about to learn that lesson the hard way. My name is Jake Martinez, and if you saw me walking down the street, you'd probably think I was just another struggling creative trying to make it in Denver. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic, lived in a modest downtown loft, and worked as a freelance graphic designer for small businesses around Boulder. What nobody knew, not even Emma, during our 3 years together, was that my grandfather had built one of the largest real estate empires in Colorado before he passed away. The Martinez Family Trust Fund contained more money than most people see in 10 lifetimes, but I'd made a conscious choice to live simply and work for everything I earned. Growing up, I watched too many of my wealthy friends become spoiled and entitled, never knowing if people liked them for who they were or what they could provide. When I turned 18 and gained access to my first trust fund installment, I decided to keep that part of my life completely separate. I wanted to find someone who would love Jake the person, not Jake the heir, to a fortune. For 3 years, I thought I'd found that person in Emma Thompson. Emma and I met during a coffee shop encounter that felt like something out of a romantic movie. She was struggling with her laptop, clearly frustrated with some presentation she was working on, and I offered to help fix whatever technical issue she was having. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized company and had this infectious laugh that could light up any room. We started dating shortly after, and for the first 2 years, everything felt perfect. She seemed to appreciate the simple things, our weekend hiking trips through the Colorado mountains, cooking dinner together in my small kitchen, watching movies on my secondhand couch. But things started changing about a year ago when she got hired at Richardson Industries. Tyler Richardson was the CEO's son, a guy who'd never worked a real day in his life, but had somehow landed a vice president position at 28. He was everything I wasn't: flashy, loud, and constantly showing off his family's wealth. His social media was filled with pictures of expensive cars, luxury vacations, and exclusive events. Emma started following his accounts obsessively. I began noticing how she'd compare our modest lifestyle to the extravagant world she was seeing at work. The first red flag should have been when she started making comments about my career choices. During dinner conversations, she'd casually mention how Tyler had just bought another sports car, or how the Richardson family owned 3 vacation homes. She'd look around our apartment with increasing dissatisfaction, making little remarks about how cramped it felt or how we deserved better. When I suggested we look for a bigger place, she'd immediately start talking about neighborhoods that were way beyond what my graphic design income could reasonably support. The engagement had happened 6 months earlier, and I'd spent weeks planning the perfect proposal. I knew Emma loved surprises, so I arranged for us to go on one of our favorite hiking trails near Boulder. At the summit, with the Rocky Mountains stretching endlessly in every direction, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. The ring wasn't the biggest diamond in the world. I had deliberately chosen something beautiful, but not ostentatious, keeping with my modest lifestyle, but her eyes filled with tears of joy as she said yes. For a moment, I thought all her recent materialism was just a phase, and that, deep down, she still loved the simple life we'd built together. But working at Richardson Industries had poisoned something fundamental in Emma's heart. She started attending company events where she'd mingle with Denver's wealthy elite and each time she came home, she seemed more dissatisfied with our life together. She'd complain about not having the right clothes for these functions, about feeling embarrassed when people asked what her fiancé did for work, about how we couldn't afford a vacation in the same places as her colleagues. I offered to stretch my budget to help with these things, but apparently that wasn't enough. The breaking point came 3 weeks before our scheduled wedding date. Emma had been working late at the office more frequently, often with Tyler on special projects that seemed to require an unusual amount of after-hours collaboration. When she finally came home those nights, she'd be distant and distracted, scrolling through her phone and barely participating in conversations. I started noticing how she'd light up whenever Tyler's name appeared in her notifications, responding to his messages with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown me in months. Then came the night when everything unraveled. Emma arrived home later than usual, and instead of the tired, stressed expression I'd grown accustomed to, she looked excited and energized in a way I hadn't seen since our early dating days. She was carrying a manila envelope, and her hands were actually shaking with anticipation as she sat down across from me at our small dining table. Without any explanation or preamble, she opened the envelope and spread out several documents. That appeared to be financial statements and property records. "Jake, look at this," she said, her voice filled with an excitement that made my stomach turn. "Tyler showed me his family's portfolio today. Do you see these numbers? They own commercial properties all over Colorado. They have investments that generate more passive income in a month than you make in a year. And this is just what he's inheriting from his father. His trust fund alone is worth $12 million. I stared at the papers, feeling something cold settle in my chest as I realized where this conversation was heading. Emma wasn't showing me these documents to make small talk about her coworkers' wealth. She was showing them to me because she'd already made a decision about our future together. And these numbers were her justification for what she was about to do. The woman I'd planned to marry, the person I'd trusted with my heart and my dreams, had been calculating the monetary value of our relationship like it was a business transaction. "Emma, why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would shatter whatever remained of the life we'd built together. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and determination that I'd never seen before, because I deserve more than this, Jake. I deserve more than wondering whether we'll be able to afford a house, or worrying about money for our kids' education, or living in this tiny apartment forever. Tyler can give me the life I've always wanted, and you, she gestured around. Our modest living room with obvious disdain. You're a graphic designer who charges small businesses $50 for logo designs. This is as good as it's ever going to get with you. The words hit me like physical blows, each one designed to cut deeper than the last. This was the woman who used to tell me that money didn't matter, that she loved our quiet life together, that she couldn't imagine being with anyone else. Now she was looking at me like I was a financial disappointment she'd finally worked up the courage to abandon. I thought about the ring sitting in my safety deposit box that had belonged to my great-grandmother, worth more than Tyler's entire car collection. I thought about the trust fund documents in my own filing cabinet that would have made Emma's eyes widen in disbelief. But in that moment, watching her coldly dismantle our relationship for money, I realized that revealing my wealth wouldn't fix what was fundamentally broken in her character. "So what are you saying, Emma?" I asked quietly, giving her one last chance to prove that the woman I'd fallen in love with was still somewhere inside this money-obsessed stranger. She stood up, walked to our bedroom, and returned with her engagement ring. The diamond caught the light from our overhead fixture as she placed it on the coffee table between us, the small sound it made seeming to echo through the sudden silence of our apartment. "I'm saying that Tyler proposed to me today," and I said, "Yes, we're getting married next month at the Brown Palace Hotel, and I'm moving into his house in Cherry Creek this weekend." The next morning, Emma was gone. She'd packed her belongings while I was sleeping, leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume and a forwarding address on a sticky note attached to the refrigerator. Cherry Creek, of course. Tyler's mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood. In Denver, where old money went to show off and new money went to pretend they belonged. I spent that first day walking around our apartment in a daze, seeing her absence in every corner where her things used to be. Word traveled fast in Denver's professional circles. Within 48 hours, my phone was buzzing with messages from mutual friends who'd heard about the breakup through Emma's social media posts. She'd wasted no time announcing her new engagement to Tyler, complete with photos of a diamond ring that looked like it could fund a small country's military. The comments section was filled with congratulations and heart-eye emojis, with Emma responding to each one with excessive enthusiasm about her amazing new life. And incredible fiancé treats me like a queen. The real humiliation began when I had to start canceling our wedding arrangements. The Brown Palace Hotel was surprisingly understanding about forfeiting our deposit. It's probably because they dealt with wealthy people's last-minute changes all the time. The florist, the photographer, the caterer. All of them offered sympathetic condolences while secretly calculating how much money they'd lose from our cancellation. But the worst part was calling my family, and Emma's family, to explain that the wedding was off because the bride had decided to upgrade to a richer model. My parents took the news with the kind of diplomatic grace that comes from years of dealing with wealthy people's drama. My mother, Linda, simply said she'd never trusted Emma's motivations. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. While my father, Robert, offered to transfer additional money from the family trust if I needed help getting back on my feet. They'd always been supportive of my decision to live modestly, understanding that I wanted to make my own way in the world. But they also knew that I could access my inheritance whenever I chose to. What they didn't understand was that this wasn't about money anymore. This was about discovering that the woman I'd planned to spend my life with had never really loved me at all. Emma's parents, David and Patricia Thompson, were a different story entirely. They called me 3 days after Emma moved out, not to offer condolences or check on my well-being, but to make sure I understood that their daughter was moving up in the world and that I shouldn't cause any trouble for her new relationship. Patricia actually had the audacity to suggest that I should be grateful that Emma had found someone who could provide for her properly instead of holding her back with my limited prospects. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, but it confirmed everything I'd suspected about where Emma's materialistic values had originated. The professional humiliation was even worse than the personal rejection. Denver's creative community was smaller than most people realized, and word spread quickly that Jake Martinez had been dumped for a richer guy just weeks before his wedding. I could see the pity in people's eyes when they thought I wasn't looking. Some of them offered me extra work out of sympathy, which stung more than the outright rejection would have. I'd built my reputation as a reliable, talented designer, but now I was becoming known as the guy whose fiancé had traded up for money. The worst incident happened at a gallery opening in downtown Denver, where several of my designs were being displayed as part of a local business showcase. I'd been looking forward to this event for months, seeing it as an opportunity to network with potential high-end clients and maybe expand my portfolio beyond small business logos and website layouts. Emma knew about this event because I'd mentioned it several times during our relationship, talking about how excited I was to finally break into Denver's more prestigious design market. I was standing near my display, chatting with a potential client about a rebranding project, when Emma and Tyler made their grand entrance. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, dripping with jewelry that caught the gallery's spotlights like a walking advertisement for Tyler's wealth. But what really caught my attention was how she carried herself, like she was royalty gracing the peasants with her presence. This was not the same woman who used to wear hiking boots and flannel shirts on our weekend adventures through the Colorado mountains. Tyler, for his part, looked exactly like what he was, a privileged trust fund baby who'd never faced a real challenge in his life. His perfectly styled hair, designer suit, and custom watch screamed expensive taste and zero substance. He had the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, the kind of arrogance that emerges when the world is always bent to accommodate your family's wealth. As they walked through the gallery, Tyler made loud comments about the amateur artwork and provincial Denver art scene, clearly trying to establish his sophisticated superiority over everyone in the room. When they reached my display area, Emma's face went through a fascinating series of expressions, first surprise, then discomfort. then a kind of defensive anger that suggested she'd hoped to avoid any awkward encounters with her ex-fiancé. Tyler, however, seemed delighted by the opportunity to assert his dominance in person. He looked at my designs with exaggerated interest, making comments just loud enough for nearby people to hear about how quaint and simple they were. "So this is what you've been working on, Jake," Tyler said with a condescending smile that made my hands clench into fists. "Very accessible. I'm sure small businesses appreciate having affordable options." The way he said affordable made it sound like a disease. Emma stood beside him, saying nothing, but I could see her mentally calculating whether associating with me in public would damage her new social status. "Tyler, these are actually quite sophisticated," interjected the potential client I'd been speaking with, clearly sensing the tension and trying to diffuse it. "Jake's work has been getting attention from some major Colorado companies lately." Emma finally spoke up, her voice carrying a sharp edge I'd rarely heard during our relationship. "Oh, Jake's always been talented at his level." Difference between designing logos for coffee shops and handling the kind of high-stakes projects that Tyler's family deals with. Richardson Industries works with international firms, Fortune 500 companies, that sort of thing. It requires a completely different caliber of professional. The dismissal in her voice was like a slap across the face. This was the woman who used to brag about my creativity to her friends, who kept printed copies of my designs in her desk at work, who once told me that my talent was one of the things she loved most about me. Now she was using my career as ammunition to justify her betrayal, twisting my modest success into evidence of my inadequacy compared to Tyler's inherited wealth. Tyler wrapped his arm around Emma's waist with obvious possessiveness, pulling her closer like he was marking his territory. "Well, we should probably get going. We have dinner reservations at the Capitol Grill, and then we're flying to Aspen this weekend to look at vacation properties. Emma deserves to see how the other half lives." He looked directly at me as he said this, making sure I understood that he could provide experiences I'd never be able to afford. As they walked away, I heard Emma laugh at something Tyler whispered in her ear, the sound echoing through the gallery like a celebration of my humiliation. Several people nearby had witnessed the entire exchange, and their sympathetic glances made everything worse. I excused myself from the potential client, mumbled something about needing fresh air, and walked outside into the cold Denver evening. Standing on the sidewalk, watching expensive cars drive past, carrying people to restaurants and events I supposedly couldn't afford, I felt something shift inside my chest. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was a cold, clear anger at being treated like a second-class citizen by people who had no idea what they were talking about. Emma and Tyler thought they knew everything about my financial situation based on my modest lifestyle and creative career, but they were about to learn that appearances can be incredibly deceiving. That night, I sat in my small apartment and made a decision that would change everything. I'd spent 3 years hiding my wealth to find genuine love, and instead, I'd found someone who would abandon me the moment a bigger paycheck came along. Emma wanted to play games about money and social status. Fine, but she was playing against someone who had more resources than she could possibly imagine. She didn't even know the game had started. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Maya Chen's number. Maya and I had been close friends during college, where we'd both been part of the entrepreneurship program at the University of Colorado Boulder. While I'd chosen to pursue design and live off my modest income, Maya had built a tech startup that was now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She'd been sending me occasional messages over the years, mostly professional networking stuff, but I'd always gotten the impression that she'd been interested in something more than friendship. More importantly, Maya was someone who'd known me before I had money, during my money, and after I'd chosen to live without flaunting my money. If anyone would understand what I was going through, it would be her. I sent her a simple message. "Hey Maya, are you free for coffee this week? I could use some advice from someone who understands complicated financial situations." Her response came back within minutes. "Of course, Jake. How about tomorrow afternoon? I know a great place in Boulder, and I've been hoping we'd reconnect." As I turned off the lights in my apartment, I couldn't help but smile for the first time since Emma had walked out. Tomorrow, I would start building a new life with someone who'd actually earned their success. instead of inheriting it. And if Emma and Tyler happened to cross my path again, they were going to discover that the poor graphic designer they'd dismissed. So casually had a few surprises in store for them. Maya suggested we meet at a small cafe near the University of Colorado Boulder campus, a place that held memories from our college days, when we'd spend hours discussing business ideas and debating the ethics of wealth distribution. As I drove my modest Honda through the familiar streets, I couldn't help but remember how different my life had been back then. College was where I'd first seriously considered whether to access my trust fund or forge my own path, and Maya had been one of the few people who'd encouraged me to follow my passion for design, regardless of my family's expectations. When I arrived at the cafe, Maya was already seated at a corner table. I was struck by how much she'd changed since our university days. Gone was the awkward computer science student who'd worn oversized hoodies and kept her hair in a perpetual ponytail. The woman sitting across from me exuded confidence and success, dressed in elegant business attire that managed to look both professional and approachable. Her tech company, Quantum Leap Solutions, had become one of Denver's most successful startups, and Maya had been featured on the cover of Colorado Business Magazine just 6 months earlier. "Jake, you look terrible," she said, with the kind of direct honesty that had always characterized our friendship. "Sit down and tell me what's really going on. Your message mentioned complicated financial situations, but I have a feeling this is about more than money." I found myself telling her everything. The gradual deterioration of my relationship with Emma, the way she'd become obsessed with Tyler's wealth, the humiliating gallery incident where they'd treated me like a poverty-stricken artist desperate for validation. Maya listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or raising an eyebrow, but never offering the kind of empty platitudes that most people felt compelled to share during breakup stories. "So let me understand this correctly," Maya said. "When I finished, Emma left you because she thinks you're poor. Tyler is treating you like some kind of charitable case because he assumes you're struggling financially. Meanwhile, you're sitting on enough money to buy their entire social circle, but you've been hiding it because you wanted to find someone who loved you for yourself." "That's about the size of it," I admitted, stirring my coffee absently. "No, it sounds stupid now, but I genuinely thought Emma was different. For 3 years, she seemed happy with our simple life together. I thought I'd finally found someone who cared more about character than cash flow." Maya leaned back in her chair, studying my face with an intensity that reminded me why she'd been so successful in the competitive tech industry. "No, Jake, can I ask you something? When we were in college, you used to talk about wanting to build something meaningful with your life, something that would make your grandfather proud of the legacy he'd left behind. What happened to that dream?" The question caught me off guard, because I'd been so focused on my relationship drama that I'd forgotten about my larger life goals. In college, I'd planned to eventually use my inheritance to start a foundation or invest in socially responsible businesses. But I'd gotten distracted by the comfortable routine of modest living and romantic relationships. Maya's success had always been driven by a desire to create something innovative and beneficial. While I'd been content to drift along designing logos and hiding from my family's expectations, "I guess I got comfortable being nobody special," I said, the words tasting bitter as I spoke them. It was easier to blend in than to figure out what I actually wanted to accomplish with all that money. "Well, maybe Emma did you a favor," Maya said with a slight smile. "Maybe this is your wake-up call to stop hiding from your potential and start building the life you actually want." As we talked, Maya mentioned that her company was hosting a major tech conference next month at the Denver Convention Center. Quantum Leap Solutions would be unveiling their latest software platform. The event would attract investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders from across the Rocky Mountain region. She casually mentioned that Richardson Industries had purchased one of the premium sponsorship packages, which meant Tyler would likely be attending as a representative of his family's company. "You should come as my guest," Maya suggested. "Might be interesting to see how Tyler and Emma react when they realize that the poor graphic designer they've been dismissing actually moves in some pretty influential circles." The idea intrigued me, but I wasn't sure I was ready for another public confrontation with my ex-fiancée and her wealthy new boyfriend. Maya seemed to sense my hesitation, and she reached across the table to touch my hand gently. Need to tell you something that might change your perspective on this whole situation? Do you remember senior year when you helped me debug that impossible coding project? I was ready to drop out of the computer science program because I couldn't figure out why my algorithm kept crashing, and you spent 3 entire nights working through the problem with me, even though you had your own design portfolio do the. Next week, I remembered the incident vaguely, but it hadn't seemed like a big deal at the time. Maya had been struggling, and I'd had some programming experience from high school, so I'd offered to help. We'd worked until dawn for several nights, surviving on energy drinks and determination until we finally identified the error in her code. That project became the foundation for my first software patent, Maya continued. The algorithm we debugged together is what eventually became the core technology for quantum leap solutions. You literally helped me build the foundation of a company that's now worth $400 million. And you never asked for anything in return. You just saw someone who needed help, and you gave everything you had to offer. I stared at her, completely stunned by this revelation. In college, I'd just been helping a friend with homework. I'd had no idea that our late-night debugging sessions would eventually transform into a business empire that had made Maya one of the youngest successful tech entrepreneurs in Colorado. Maya, I had no idea that project was so important to your career. I was just trying to help you pass the class. That's exactly my point, she said, her eyes brightening with the kind of passion I remembered from our university days. You've always been someone who gives without expecting anything back. Someone who sees people's potential instead of their current circumstances. Emma never deserved that kind of loyalty, and Tyler definitely doesn't deserve to make you feel inferior. As our conversation continued, Maya revealed more details about her current situation that made my head spin. Quantum Leap Solutions wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. Maya had developed artificial intelligence software that could predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. And major corporations were licensing her technology for millions of dollars. She owned a penthouse apartment in downtown Denver, drove a Tesla Model S, and had been featured in Forbes magazine as one of the top innovators under 30. But here's the thing that might surprise you, Maya said as we prepared to leave the cafe. I never forgot about you, Jake. Even when I was building the company and dealing with investors and trying to prove myself in a male-dominated industry, I always wondered what would have happened if we'd stayed in touch after graduation. I always wondered if you might have been interested in building something together. The implications of her words hung in the air between us, and I realized that Maya wasn't just offering professional networking or friendly support. She was suggesting the possibility of something much more significant, both personally and financially. Here was a woman who'd built her own empire through intelligence and hard work. Someone who understood the complexities of wealth and success. Someone who'd known me long before money became a factor in my relationships. Maya, are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that some of us have been waiting for you to stop settling for people who don't appreciate your worth. She replied with a confidence that reminded me why I'd always been attracted to her fierce intelligence. I'm saying that maybe it's time for you to start thinking bigger than graphic design logos and modest apartments. I'm saying that if you're ready to step into the life you were actually meant to live, I'd like to be part of that journey. As I drove home from Boulder that afternoon, my mind was racing with possibilities I hadn't considered in years. Maya's offer wasn't just about revenge against Emma and Tyler, though I had to admit the prospect of seeing their faces when they realized their mistake was appealing. This was about reclaiming my identity and finally using my resources to build something meaningful. That evening, I made a phone call that I'd been avoiding for months. My father answered on the second ring, and his voice carried the kind of warmth that came from years of hoping his son would finally embrace his inheritance. Dad, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about the family trust fund. I'm ready to start accessing my inheritance, and I want to discuss some investment opportunities that might interest you. The silence on the other end of the line lasted several seconds before my father's voice returned, filled with excitement and relief. Hey Jake, I've been waiting for this call for 10 years. Let's schedule a meeting with our financial advisors. This week it's time you learned exactly how much money you've been sitting on. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but smile at the irony of the situation. Emma had left me because she thought I couldn't provide the wealthy lifestyle she craved. But she'd actually walked away from more money than Tyler's family had. ever dreamed of possessing? And now, with Maya's support and my family's resources, I was about to step into a world that would make Richardson Industries look like a corner store operation. The only question remaining was how long it would take Emma and Tyler to realize that they'd made the biggest financial mistake of their lives. The meeting with my family's financial advisors took place in a downtown Denver skyscraper that I'd driven past thousands of times without ever imagining I'd be sitting in the penthouse conference room. Marcus Webb, our longtime family attorney, spread documents across the mahogany table that outlined an inheritance, so vast it took me 20 minutes just to understand the basic structure. The Martinez family trust wasn't just about real estate anymore. My grandfather's original investments had been carefully managed and diversified over the decades, growing into a portfolio that included technology stocks, international holdings, renewable energy projects, and commercial properties across 3 states. Jake, your current accessible trust fund balance is $47 million, Marcus explained, sliding a statement across the table. That's just the immediate liquidity portion, your total inheritance, including properties, investments, and business holdings, is valued at approximately $230 million. You become eligible for full access when you turn 30, but you can begin drawing significant amounts immediately if you choose to do so. I stared at the numbers, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and vertigo. Was wealthy, but I'd never grasped the true scale of my family's fortune. This wasn't just comfortable money or even rich money. This was buy a professional sports team money, start your own university money, make people like Tyler Richardson look like middle-class pretenders money. My father leaned forward with obvious pride. Your grandfather would be thrilled to know you're finally ready to embrace this responsibility. Jake, he always believed that wealth should be used to create opportunity and positive change, not just accumulated for its own sake. Over the next week, I began the process of accessing my inheritance and restructuring my life in ways that felt both exciting and terrifying. I hired a personal financial advisor, opened investment accounts that required 7-figure minimum balances, and started exploring opportunities to make meaningful contributions to causes I cared about. But most importantly, I began planning my appearance at Maya's tech conference with the kind of strategic thinking that my grandfather would have appreciated. Maya and I had been spending time together almost every day since our coffee meeting, and I was rediscovering why I'd been attracted to her intelligence and ambition during college. Like Emma, who'd become obsessed with wealth as a status symbol, Maya understood money as a tool for creating innovation and solving problems. Her company was developing software that could revolutionize everything from medical diagnosis to climate change research. And she talked about her success with the kind of passionate purpose that I'd been missing in my own life. You know what I love most about finally having resources, Maya said during dinner at a restaurant that would have been impossibly expensive for my previous lifestyle. It's not the cars or the penthouse or the designer clothes, though I admit those are nice. Perks. It's the freedom to take risks on projects that might not pay off immediately but could change the world eventually. As the date of the tech conference approached, Maya suggested that we make our relationship public in a way that would send shockwaves through Denver's business community. Quantum Leap Solutions had reserved the entire top floor of the Brown Palace Hotel for a private reception after the conference, and Maya wanted me to attend as her official partner, both personally and potentially professionally. I've been thinking about expanding into graphic design and digital marketing, Maya explained. Quantum Leap could use a creative director who understands both artistic vision and business strategy. Interested in a job that starts at $200, $1,000 a year, plus equity options that could be worth millions if our next software launch succeeds. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma had left me because she thought my graphic design career represented financial limitations. But Maya was offering me an opportunity to turn those same skills into a fortune that would dwarf anything Tyler's family business could provide. More than that, she was offering me the chance to build something meaningful instead of just inheriting wealth passively. The night of the tech conference, I wore a custom-tailored suit that cost more than my old monthly rent and drove to the Denver Convention Center in a brand-new BMW that I'd purchased with cash the day before. The transformation felt surreal, like I was putting on a costume for a role I'd never auditioned for. but Maya had insisted that appearing successful was essential for commanding respect in the business world. The conference itself was impressive, featuring presentations from some of the most innovative companies in the Rocky Mountain region. Maya's keynote speech about artificial intelligence and predictive analytics received a standing ovation, and I felt genuine pride watching her command the attention of hundreds of industry leaders. During the networking sessions, she introduced me to investors, tech executives, and entrepreneurs who treated me with the kind of automatic respect that came from being associated with someone of Maya's caliber. But the real fireworks began. During the evening reception at the Brown Palace Hotel, Maya had rented the same ballroom where Emma and I had originally planned to hold our wedding. A detail that she'd chosen deliberately after I'd mentioned the painful irony during one of our conversations. The space was decorated with elegant lighting and modern art installations that showcased Quantum Leap's cutting-edge aesthetic, and the guest list included some of the wealthiest and most influential people in Colorado. I was standing near the bar, chatting with a venture capitalist about potential investment opportunities, when Emma and Tyler made their entrance. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's cars, and Tyler was sporting his usual collection of expensive accessories designed to advertise his family's wealth. They moved through the crowd with the kind of performative confidence that screamed insecurity, making loud comments about the impressive turnout and how well-connected they were in Denver's business community. Maya appeared at my side just as Emma spotted me across the room. The expression on Emma's face was priceless, shifting from confusion to recognition to something approaching panic as she realized that her ex-fiancé was not only present at this exclusive event, but appeared to be one of the guests of honor. "Jake, darling, are you ready for this?" Maya asked, linking her arm through mine with obvious affection. She was wearing a stunning black dress that managed to look both elegant and powerful, and the diamond earrings she'd chosen for the evening probably cost more than Tyler's watch collection. "I think so," I replied, though my heart was racing with anticipation. "Let's go say hello to some old friends." As we approached Emma and Tyler, I could see them both struggling to process what they were witnessing. Emma kept glancing between Maya and me, clearly trying to figure out how her supposedly poor ex-fiancé had ended up as the date of Denver's most successful tech entrepreneur. Tyler, meanwhile, was staring at my suit and watch with the kind of calculating expression that suggested he was mentally tallying up the cost of my appearance. "Emma, Tyler, what a pleasant surprise," I said with the kind of casual confidence that money can provide. "I don't think you've met my girlfriend, Maya Chen." "Maya? This is Emma Thompson and Tyler Richardson from Richardson Industries." Maya extended her hand with gracious professionalism, though I could see the sharp intelligence in her eyes as she evaluated the couple who'd caused me so much pain. "Oh yes, Jake has told me so much about you both. Congratulations on your engagement. By the way, I hope you're planning something spectacular." Emma's voice came out higher than normal, betraying her nervousness. "Jake, I had no idea you knew Maya Chen. I mean, we've read about Quantum Leap solutions in the business journals, of course, but I didn't realize you moved in these kinds of circles." Tyler stepped forward with his usual arrogance, apparently deciding that the best defense was a good offense. "Well, this is certainly unexpected. Jake, I have to admit I'm curious how you managed to get an invitation to this event. Are you here as press coverage for one of your small business clients?" The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, and I saw Maya's jaw tighten slightly. But before I could respond, she stepped closer to Tyler with the kind of smile that sharks probably wear right before feeding time. "Actually, Tyler, Jake is here as my guest and potential business partner," Maya said smoothly. "We're discussing the possibility of him joining Quantum Leap as our new creative director. The position comes with a substantial salary and equity package that should set him up quite nicely for the future." Emma's face went pale as she began to grasp the implications of what Maya was saying. "Business partner? Jake, I don't understand. When did you start working in technology?" "I've been exploring new opportunities since my engagement ended," I replied, enjoying the way Emma flinched at the reference to our broken relationship. "It turns out that my background in design and digital marketing translates quite well to the tech industry, especially when you're working with innovative companies like Quantum Leap." Tyler was clearly struggling to maintain his superior attitude, as he realized that his assumptions about my financial situation might have been incorrect. Well, it's great for you, Jake. I'm sure it's a significant step up from your previous work. Well, it definitely is, Maya interjected. Before I could respond, in fact, we're considering several joint ventures that could be quite lucrative. Jake has some fascinating ideas about combining artistic vision with cutting-edge technology. And I've been looking for the right partner to help expand Quantum Leap's creative capabilities. As the conversation continued, I could see Emma's mind racing as she tried to reconcile the Jake she thought she knew with the Jake, who was apparently dating one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Colorado and discussing business deals worth millions of dollars. Tyler, meanwhile, was beginning to look like someone who just realized he might have made a serious miscalculation. The real bombshell came when Maya excused herself to give a brief speech thanking the conference attendees. As she took the microphone, she gestured toward me with obvious affection. Before we conclude tonight's festivities, I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special, Maya announced to the crowd of several hundred business leaders. Many of you know that Quantum Leap Solutions was built on innovation, hard work, and the support of people who believed in our vision from the beginning. Tonight, I'm thrilled to announce that Jake Martinez will be joining our executive team as Chief Creative Officer, bringing his exceptional design expertise and strategic vision to our growing company family. The applause that followed was thunderous, but I was focused entirely on Emma's face as she realized that her ex-fiancé had just been publicly announced as a high-level executive at one of Denver's most valuable companies. Tyler looked like someone had hit him with a brick, his usual smug confidence replaced by obvious confusion and growing concern. As Maya returned to our group, she slipped her hand into mine with natural intimacy. I hope you don't mind the public announcement, darling. I wanted to make sure everyone knew how excited I am about our partnership, both professional and personal. Emma finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. Jake, I had no idea you were involved with Maya's company. This is all so unexpected. Life has a funny way of surprising us, I replied, looking directly into her eyes. Sometimes what we think we want isn't actually what's best for us. Sometimes we have to lose something before we can find what we were really meant to have. The message was clear, and Emma understood it perfectly. She'd thrown away our relationship because she thought I couldn't provide the wealthy lifestyle she craved. But I'd actually been capable of giving her more than she'd ever dreamed. Now that wealth and success were flowing to someone who'd actually earned them through talent and hard work, someone who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. The weeks following the tech conference transformed my life in ways I'd never imagined possible. Working alongside Maya at Quantum Leap Solutions felt like stepping into a world where creativity and innovation merged seamlessly with financial success. My role as Chief Creative Officer wasn't just a prestigious title. It was an opportunity to shape the visual identity of technology that would impact millions of lives. The salary Maya had offered was just the beginning. The equity package in Quantum Leap meant that as the company continued to grow, my personal wealth would expand exponentially beyond even my family's inheritance. Maya and I had fallen into a natural rhythm of partnership that extended far beyond the professional realm. She understood my desire to use wealth responsibly, and together we began exploring philanthropic ventures that could make meaningful differences in Colorado communities. We established a scholarship fund for underprivileged students pursuing careers in technology and design. And we started investing in sustainable energy projects that aligned with both our values and our business interests. The contrast between my new life and my previous existence was striking. Instead of hiding from my potential, I was embracing opportunities to create positive change while building something lasting and significant. Maya's penthouse became our shared space, overlooking the Denver skyline, with views that reminded me daily of how much my perspective had shifted. We hosted dinner parties for innovative entrepreneurs, attended gallery openings as collectors rather than struggling artists, traveled to technology conferences around the world where Maya's expertise was sought after by industry leaders. But the most satisfying transformation was watching Emma and Tyler's world slowly crumble as the truth about their situation became clear to Denver's social circles. Within a month of the Quantum Leap announcement, word had spread throughout the business community that Jake Martinez wasn't just Maya Chin's boyfriend. He was heir to one of Colorado's largest fortunes and a rising star in the technology sector. The same people who'd pitied me at the gallery opening were now requesting meetings and invitations to events. Emma tried reaching out several times, through mutual acquaintances, sending messages that ranged from casual attempts at reconnection to increasingly desperate apologies. She'd apparently learned about my family's wealth through Tyler's business connections, and the realization that she'd walked away from a fortune much larger than the Richardson family holdings had left her devastated. Her social media posts, once filled with bragging about luxury purchases and expensive vacations, became noticeably more subdued as the reality of her mistakes settled in. Tyler's situation was even more dramatic. Richardson Industries had been struggling financially for months, relying on outdated business models and failing to adapt to changing market conditions. When Tyler approached Maya about potential partnerships or investments, hoping to leverage his connection to her new chief creative officer, Maya politely declined with the kind of professional courtesy that made her rejection even more devastating. She'd researched Richardson Industries thoroughly and concluded that their company, culture, and business practices didn't align with Quantum Leap's values. A final confrontation happened at a charity auction where Maya and I were representing Quantum Leap's corporate sponsorship. The event was raising money for children's education programs. Maya had insisted we attend because supporting education initiatives was central to our shared philanthropic vision. We donated several items to the auction, including a custom design consultation package and a weekend getaway to our newly purchased cabin in Aspen. Emma and Tyler were seated at a table near the back of the ballroom, clearly trying to maintain their social status despite their declining financial circumstances. Emma kept glancing in our direction throughout the evening, and I could see her internal struggle between pride and regret playing out across her facial expressions. Tyler looked uncomfortable and out of place, lacking his usual swagger now that everyone in attendance knew his family's business was failing. During the live auction portion of the evening, Maya surprised me by bidding aggressively on a vintage guitar that had belonged to a famous Colorado musician. The bidding escalated quickly. When Maya's final bid of $50,000 won the item, she turned to me with sparkling eyes. "Happy early birthday, darling," she said, kissing me softly as applause filled the ballroom. "I know how much you've always wanted to learn to play music. Now we have the time and resources to explore all kinds of new interests together." The gesture was so thoughtful and spontaneous that I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the woman, who not only helped me reclaim my life, but had also shown me what genuine partnership looked like. Emma had always focused on what I could provide for her, but Maya consistently looked for ways to enrich my experiences and support my personal growth. As we prepared to leave the auction, Emma finally approached us directly. She'd clearly been drinking, and her usual composure was nowhere to be found. "Jake, can I please talk to you for just a minute? I know I have no right to ask, but there are things I need to say." Maya squeezed my hand supportively but stepped aside to give us privacy, understanding that I needed closure from this chapter of my life. Emma's eyes were filled with tears, and her voice shook as she spoke. "I was so wrong about everything. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me for someone who turned out to be nothing but empty promises and family money that's disappearing anyway. Tyler's company is going bankrupt, and he's been lying about his personal finances for months. I destroyed our relationship for an illusion." I looked at Emma with genuine sadness for the choices she'd made, but I felt no anger or desire for revenge anymore. "Emma, I hope you find happiness eventually, but it was never going to be with me. You showed me who you really are when money became more important than love, and I'm grateful that happened before we got married instead of after." She nodded through her tears, understanding that there was no path back to what we'd once shared. "I just want you to know that I realize now what I lost. You deserved so much better than how I treated you." As Maya and I drove home through the Denver streets, I reflected on how completely my life had transformed in just a few months. I'd gone from being someone who hid from his potential to someone who was actively building a legacy worth being proud of. The woman beside me wasn't just beautiful and successful. She was my intellectual equal, my creative collaborator, and my partner in every sense that mattered. 6 months later, Maya and I were engaged, planning a wedding that would celebrate our shared vision for the future rather than simply displaying wealth or social status. We'd purchased a ranch outside Boulder where we could host retreats for young entrepreneurs. And Quantum Leap had become one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. My family's financial advisors projected that our combined net worth would exceed $500 million within 5 years. But more importantly, we were using our resources to create opportunities for others and solve problems that mattered. Emma eventually moved back to her parents' house after Tyler's business collapsed completely, taking a modest job with a local marketing firm and slowly rebuilding her life with more realistic expectations. Tyler disappeared from Denver's social scene entirely, reportedly working for his uncle's construction company in a different state. I genuinely hoped they'd both learned from their mistakes and would find happiness eventually. But their stories were no longer connected to mine. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the years I spent hiding my wealth and living modestly. The answer is absolutely not. Those experiences taught me the difference between people who love you for who you are and people who love you for what you can provide. They showed me that real partnership means building something together rather than simply enjoying what someone else has built. Most importantly, they led me to Maya, who saw my potential long before she knew about my bank account, and who continues to challenge me to become the best version of myself every single day. The Martinez family legacy my grandfather built was always meant to be about more than accumulating money. It was about creating opportunities, supporting innovation, and making positive differences in the world. With Maya by my side, I finally understand how to honor that legacy while building something even greater for the future. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.